Venezuela has more oil than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia, more than the United States. Yet its people are struggling, its economy collapsed, and its oil barely flows. So why is Donald Trump so interested in Venezuela's oil? Is it about energy security? Is it about power and control? Or is it part of a much bigger geopolitical game involving China, Russia, and America's global dominance? Today, we're breaking down the real reasons why Trump wants Venezuela's oil, and why this single resource could reshape global power for decades to come. Stay with me, because this story is far bigger than oil. Venezuela has long been at the center of U.S. geopolitical and energy discussions, largely because it holds the largest proven oil reserves in the world, estimated at around 303 billion barrels, or about 17% of global reserves. Despite this, decades of mismanagement, corruption, sanctions, and political turmoil have crippled its oil industry. Production once exceeded 3 million barrels per day, but in recent years has fallen below 1 million barrels per day, leaving a massive untapped resource. So why would Donald Trump, or the US government, target Venezuela's oil? On the surface, Trump has given several justifications, but deeper currents of energy strategy, geopolitical ambition, economic interests, and ideological motives help explain his policy. These reasons range from boosting U.S. energy security and market power, to exerting political influence in Latin America and countering strategic rivals. 1. Venezuela's immense oil reserves. A strategic prize. The raw fact is that Venezuela's oil reserves are massive. Holding nearly a fifth of the world's proven oil stockpile, the country represents a major potential source of crude, much of it heavy and sour crude which specialized refineries, especially in the U.S., are designed to process. Trump repeatedly emphasizes that Venezuela's reserves are too valuable to be left undeveloped, especially when the U.S. consumes over 20 million barrels of oil per day and seeks to maintain its energy dominance. For an energy-focused administration like Trump's, which has portrayed fossil fuels as essential to U.S. economic and strategic strength, securing access to such a resource is a powerful motivator. It fits within a broader, energy dominance, framework favored by Trump and his allies, which prioritizes maximizing control and access to fossil fuel resources globally. 2. Restoring U.S. influence in Latin America. Control or influence over Venezuelan oil also has major geopolitical implications. Venezuela sits in South America, a region historically seen by the United States as part of its sphere of influence under doctrines like the Monroe Doctrine. Trump's interventions reflect a revival of a similar mindset, often framed as the Monroe Doctrine, where the U.S. seeks to dominate key strategic resources and maintain political leverage in the Western Hemisphere. By securing Venezuela's oil infrastructure and markets, the U.S. aims not just to benefit economically, but to limit the influence of geopolitical rivals like Russia, China, and Iran. Venezuela has cultivated ties with these powers, especially Russia, through joint ventures, military cooperation, and oil deals. The U.S. sees controlling or redirecting Venezuelan oil as a way to weaken those alliances. 3. Economic incentives for corporations in the U.S. market. Economically, Trump has argued that opening up Venezuela's oil industry to U.S. companies could result in billions of dollars in investment and profits. He has publicly urged American oil giants to invest $100 billion to rebuild Venezuela's broken infrastructure and revive production, promising legal protections and security guarantees to reassure them. From the oil company's perspective, Venezuelan crude, though heavy and more costly to extract, is a resource that U.S. refineries are equipped to handle. If production was restored to significant levels, it could strengthen U.S. energy security and potentially lower fuel costs domestically. Trump's energy secretary has also said the U.S. plans to control Venezuelan oil sales and revenues indefinitely, channeling profits through U.S.-controlled accounts under the guise of stability and investment in the country's recovery. This strategy ensures that some profits go to the U.S. and U.S. corporations, with a portion intended, at least rhetorically, to benefit ordinary Venezuelans too. 4. Reversing past nationalizations and legal claims. Another theme in Trump's rhetoric is the idea that Venezuela took away U.S. oil rights when it nationalized its oil industry under Hugo Chavez and later under Nicolas Maduro. Trump and his allies framed the intervention as a way to restore rights and compensation for U.S. companies that lost assets decades ago. This narrative frames U.S. actions not merely as grabbing resources, but correcting what Trump characterizes as historical economic injustice, though this view is contested internationally. 5. Oil is a political and diplomatic tool. Beyond direct economic benefit, oil can be used as a diplomatic lever. Controlling Venezuelan crude gives the U.S. another card in negotiations with other nations, especially major consumers like China and India, or in strategic contests with Russia. Trump has openly talked about redirecting Venezuelan oil flows away from traditional buyers like China to the United States, shifting global trade patterns. This not only weakens China's influence but reinforces U.S. economic leverage. Moreover, managing how and where Venezuelan oil is sold allows the U.S. to influence global oil prices, an important economic and geopolitical instrument with broad effects on inflation, markets, and international relations. 6. Ideological and domestic political motivations. Trump's focus on Venezuela's oil also plays well to his political base. Advocating for strong action overseas, especially against leftist governments like Maduro's, aligns with a narrative of American strength and anti-socialism. Framing U.S. engagement as both moral and strategic, freeing Venezuelans from authoritarian rule while unlocking oil, appeals to domestic supporters who prioritize energy security and assertive foreign policy. 7. Strategic counter to sanctions and market dynamics. Interestingly, while Trump has imposed sanctions and blockades to pressure Venezuela over the years, he now promotes the idea of lifting restrictions and allowing U.S. firms to operate there, if certain conditions are met. This shift highlights a tactical approach: use economic pressure to weaken a hostile government, then open the market to friendly forces. At the same time, critics argue that heavy sanctions and intervention may have worsened Venezuela's production decline, making the oil less attractive and more costly to extract, something that U.S. investment and political control could theoretically reverse. 8. Controversies and criticisms. Not everyone agrees that oil is the sole reason for U.S. actions. Some analysts argue it's part of a broader geopolitical and ideological campaign that also includes countering drug trafficking, promoting regime change, and reshaping global alliances. However, critics highlight that Trump's explicit references to controlling oil revenues, the strategic placement of U.S. forces and legal orders protecting Venezuelan oil money, and the eagerness to involve U.S. corporations point strongly to resource objectives. Many international observers also describe these actions as tantamount to resource imperialism, using military and economic power to secure access to another country's natural resources without full respect for sovereignty. Venezuela's oil isn't just fuel, it's power, influence, and leverage. And in a world where energy decides who rises and who falls, it's easy to see why global leaders are fighting over it. If you enjoyed this deep dive into politics, oil, and global strategy, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Let me know in the comments, right finger, do you think this is about helping Venezuela, or controlling its resources? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.